Every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
I don't have to tell you guys, I know your company commanders all the way down through the chain of command. I told you. Guys, we're going to war.
Major combat operations in Iraq have ended. In the Battle of Iraq, the United States and our allies have prevailed.
This is story of the Iraq War 2003. How it unfolded. March 19, 2003. The night sky over Baghdad is deceptively still. Deep inside a reinforced bunker on the outskirts of the Iraqi capital, Saddam Hussein and his inner circle believe they have time. For months, diplomatic maneuvers, United Nations weapons inspections, and fiery rhetoric have dominated the global stage, creating an illusion of a prolonged prelude. But in Washington, the decision has already been made. The ultimatum delivered by the United States has expired. Suddenly, the silence of the night is shattered by the dull roar of low-flying Tomahawk cruise missiles and the thunder of precision-guided bombs. Operation Iraqi Freedom begins not with a massive, sweeping invasion, but with a sudden surgical decapitation strike targeted directly at the Iraqi leadership. Saddam survives the initial blast, but the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East is irrevocably altered within seconds. The gears of a massive war machine are now turning, and there is no going back. The road to this explosive night began years earlier, rooted in the unresolved ashes of the 1991 Gulf War and fundamentally reshaped by the trauma of September 11, 2001. In the wake of the terror attacks on American soil, Washington shifted its foreign policy toward preemption. The geopolitical calculus centered on a powerful argument. The risk of inaction was far greater than the risk of action. The United States government asserted that Iraq possessed vast stockpiles of weapons of mass destruction and maintained active ties to international terrorist networks. Saddam Hussein, a dictator who had previously used chemical weapons against his own people and neighbors, was framed as an imminent threat to global security. United Nations inspectors combed the country searching for hidden biological and chemical agents, finding smoke but no definitive gun. Despite deep fractures within the UN Security Council and massive global protests filling the streets of international capitals, a coalition led by the United States and Great Britain prepared for war. The stakes were absolute: the total removal of a regime and the forced democratic remodeling of the entire region. By the dawn of March 20, the strategy of shock and awe is unleashed in full force. The sky over Baghdad turns blindingly bright as hundreds of cruise missiles rain down on government buildings, military command centers, and communications networks. The psychological impact is immediate and devastating, designed to paralyze the Iraqi military's ability to think, command, and fight. Concurrently, a massive ground force assembled in the Kuwaiti desert surges across the border. Unlike the heavily armored, slow-moving campaigns of the past, this invasion relies on speed, flexibility, and overwhelming technological superiority. The United States Army's 3rd Infantry Division and the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force spearhead the assault, bypassing major cities to maintain momentum. They drive relentlessly northward through the harsh, baking desert, executing the fastest long-distance armored advance in modern military history. The initial Iraqi resistance is chaotic and fragmented, but it quickly adapts in unexpected ways. While the regular Iraqi army collapses or retreats, coalition forces encounter a fierce, asymmetrical enemy, the Fedayeen Saddam. These fanatical, irregular paramilitaries do not fight in traditional formations. Instead, they launch bloody ambushes from civilian areas using rocket-propelled grenades and technical trucks. In southern cities like Nasiriyah and Samawa, the advance slows as intense urban firefights erupt. Supply lines stretching hundreds of miles back to Kuwait become vulnerable to hit-and-run attacks. Then, nature intervenes. A blinding 3-day sandstorm suddenly engulfs the region, grounding coalition helicopters and choking mechanized columns in blinding dust. The momentum hesitates, forcing commanders to make a critical choice: halt the advance to secure the rear, or press forward into the heart of the regime. The decision is made to push through the storm, relying on thermal imaging and satellite tracking to outmaneuver the blinded Iraqi defenders. By early April, the coalition reaches the outer defense ring of Baghdad, where the elite Republican Guard is dug in for a final stand. American forces utilize devastating air support and heavy armor to systematically dismantle the defensive lines around the Karbala Gap. Rather than engaging in a prolonged, bloody siege of a city populated by 5 million people, American armor launches bold, fast-moving armored incursions directly into the center of the capital. These thunder runs catch the Iraqi high command completely by surprise, exposing the regime's propaganda as a hollow facade. The illusion of control shatters, and the institutional structure of the Iraqi state evaporates almost overnight as government officials flee into the shadows. On April 9, 2003, Baghdad officially falls. In Firdos Square, a giant bronze statue of Saddam Hussein is pulled down by an American armored vehicle and a crowd of cheering Iraqis, an iconic image broadcast around the globe signaling the symbolic end of the regime. Weeks later, aboard the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, beneath a massive banner reading "Mission Accomplished," the American leadership declares an end to major combat operations in Iraq. The conventional war has been won in just over 3 weeks with remarkable speed and minimal coalition casualties. Saddam Hussein is on the run, his military is broken, and a brutal tyranny has been erased from the map. Yet, beneath the immediate celebration lies a vast, dangerous vacuum that no one is truly prepared to fill. The transition from military victory to civilian occupation rapidly transforms into a strategic nightmare. The Office for Reconstruction and Humanitarian Assistance is replaced by the Coalition Provisional Authority, led by American diplomat L. Paul Bremer. In May 2003, Bremer signs 2 fateful decrees that rewrite the trajectory of the entire conflict. Coalition Provisional Authority Order No. 1 institutes a radical policy of de-Ba'athification, purging tens of thousands of experienced Sunni administrators, teachers, and bureaucrats from the government. Order No. 2 immediately dissolves the entire Iraqi military, putting nearly 400,000 armed, trained, and angry soldiers out of work overnight. With a single stroke of a pen, the essential institutional backbone of the state is dismantled, creating massive unemployment and a deep pool of resentment. The consequences of these decisions manifest across the country almost instantly. A ferocious, decentralized insurgency ignites within the Sunni heartland, fueled by former military officers, Ba'athist loyalists, and an influx of foreign jihadists led by Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. The conflict changes shape, shifting from a conventional clash of armies into a murky, vicious guerrilla war of improvised explosive devices, sniper attacks, and devastating suicide bombings. Coalition forces, trained for high-intensity battlefield maneuvers, find themselves ill-equipped for the complex, grinding realities of counterinsurgency and nation-building. The security situation deteriorates rapidly as vital infrastructure like electricity, water, and oil pipelines are systematically targeted, plunging the Iraqi population into daily chaos and hardship. The year 2004 becomes a bloody crucible that defines the shifting nature of the war. In March, the brutal killing and mutilation of 4 American private security contractors in Fallujah forces a heavy-handed military response, triggering the first of 2 intense battles for the city. Simultaneously, in the south, a radical Shiite cleric named Muqtada al-Sadr rallies the Mahdi army, launching a coordinated uprising against coalition forces. The coalition now faces a dual-front insurgency from both Sunni and Shiite factions. Compounding the crisis, images of abuse from the Abu Ghraib prison leak to the public, damaging the moral authority of the occupation and hardening local resistance. In December, American forces engage in the Second Battle of Fallujah, the fiercest urban combat since the Vietnam War, successfully clearing the city block by block but leaving it in ruins and further alienating the local population. The capture of Saddam Hussein in a dirt hole near Tikrit in late 2003 fails to quell the violence, because the war has evolved far beyond the fate of one man. By 2005, the primary driver of the conflict shifts from an anti-occupation insurgency into a catastrophic sectarian civil war. The fault lines tear open completely when the Al-Askari Mosque in Samarra, one of the holiest sites in Shia Islam, is bombed by Al-Qaeda in Iraq in early 2006. This provocative act unleashes a torrent of retaliatory violence between Sunni and Shiite militias. Death squads roam the streets of Baghdad nightly, and bodies are discovered daily by the dozens, bearing signs of torture. The country is fracturing along ancient ethnic and religious lines, and the fragile new democratic government is paralyzed by corruption and sectarian divisions, unable to protect its citizens. By late 2006, the consensus in Washington is that the war is being lost. In a desperate, high-stakes gamble, a new strategy is formulated: the troop surge of 2007. Led by General David Petraeus, the United States deploys an additional 30,000 troops into Iraq, shifting the operational focus from large, isolated bases to embedding soldiers directly within local neighborhoods to secure the population. Crucially, this military reinforcement coincides with a political breakthrough known as the Anbar Awakening. Tribal Sunni leaders, alienated by the extreme brutality and strict religious dictates of Al-Qaeda in Iraq, pivot to form an alliance with American forces. Paid and equipped by the coalition, these Sons of Iraq militias successfully purge foreign jihadists from their communities. The dual approach works, causing violence across the country to drop dramatically by the end of 2007. This hard-won stability creates a fragile window of opportunity for political transition. Over the next 3 years, the newly trained Iraqi security forces gradually assume control of their own domestic security. In accordance with a bilateral agreement signed under the Bush administration and executed under the Obama administration, the United States begins a methodical, phased withdrawal of its combat forces. On December 18, 2011, the final convoy of American soldiers crosses the southern border into Kuwait, officially drawing the nearly 9-year military intervention to a close. The war leaves behind an Iraq that is structurally unified but deeply traumatized, scarred by years of relentless conflict and vulnerable to future instability. The 2003 invasion of Iraq remains one of the most consequential turning points in modern global history. What began as a rapid, dazzling display of military technological might quickly evolved into a tragic lesson in the limits of raw power and the unpredictable perils of regime change. The initial intelligence regarding weapons of mass destruction was proven to be fundamentally flawed, permanently eroding public trust in political leadership and reshaping Western foreign policy for a generation. The war claimed the lives of thousands of coalition troops, hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians, and cost trillions of dollars, while fundamentally tilting the balance of power in the Middle East toward regional rivals. In the end, the conflict demonstrated that while a government can be dismantled in a matter of weeks, rebuilding a stable nation from the pieces is a journey measured in decades.